The US has launched dozens of air raids in Yemen, killing at least 53 people and injuring 98 more, including many women and children. Targets have included multiple residential buildings and a power plant, as well as Houthi, also known as Ansar Allah, military sites. Here you can see the aftermath of a strike on a residential area in Sada, a northern government of Yemen under Ansar Allah or Houthi control. And here is one of the child victims arriving at a local hospital. The strike is reported to have killed 10 people, injured 13 more, including 2 children, with a further 2 children still missing under the rubble. God. The attacks came after the Houthis threatened to resume attacks on Israeli ships in the Red Sea in response to the total blockade of Gaza, which is now in its 3rd week. The Houthis responded by firing 18 ballistic and cruise missiles at an American aircraft carrier, the USS Truman. Previously, the Houthis did follow through on their promise to halt attacks once a ceasefire was implemented in Gaza. And initially, they only threatened to resume attacks on Israeli ships. In response to US airstrikes, Houthi leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi announced that all US military and commercial vehicles would be included in the blockade. Basically, the US has made its ships a target and killed dozens of Yemeni people, all to defend Israel's right to starve the population of Gaza. However, in a post on his social network Truth Social, Trump said he was blaming Iran. He said this: "Let nobody be fooled. The hundreds of attacks being made by Houthi, the sinister mobsters and thugs based in Yemen who are hated by the Yemeni people, all emanate from and are created by Iran. Any further attack of retaliation by the Houthis will be met with great force, and there is no guarantee that the force will stop there. Iran has played the innocent victim of rogue terrorists from which they've lost control, but they haven't lost control. They're dictating every move, giving them the weapons, supplying them with money and highly sophisticated military equipment, and even so-called intelligence. Every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon from this point forward as being a shot fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran, and Iran will be held responsible and suffer the consequences, and those consequences will be dire." But the links between Iran and the Houthis are well known, so they're not shy about claiming membership of the Axis of Resistance against Israel. And the Houthis have always been clear that their actions are in response to Israel's genocide in Gaza. And make no mistake, that genocide is ongoing. The total blockade, under which no food, water, fuel, or medical supplies have been allowed to enter, is having devastating effects. Here's a report from Al Jazeera.
For months, the people of Gaza have lived under siege, enduring cold, hunger, and constant bombing. With border crossings sealed, the flow of food has slowed to a trickle. The markets are running out of the products, and much of what little is available is now unaffordable. Community kitchens, once feeding thousands, are now fighting their own battle, one against time, scarcity, and worsening starvation. This place was once a lifeline with food poured in to feed the displaced. Now it's a graveyard of empty shelves and silence rooms.
Community kitchens have been a lifeline for countless displaced families in Gaza, offering the only meal many receive in a day. But with border crossings sealed, the humanitarian situation has worsened dramatically. There is no food, no gas, no wood, nothing left to keep these kitchens running, as hunger tightens its grip on Gaza.
The hunger is no longer creeping, it's consuming, affecting the young, the old, all those displaced.
I used to rely on this simple community kitchen for food, but now even they are struggling to feed us. My children are crying at home from hunger, and I have nothing to give them. I can't afford to buy what we need. There's simply no way to survive.
UNICEF has said that the blockade has left 1 million children in Gaza without the basics they need to survive. And a full half of the population of Gaza are, of course, children. Here's part of a statement from UNICEF Middle East and North African Regional Director Edouard Baigbeder. Without aid entering the Gaza Strip, roughly 1 million children are living without the very basics they need to survive, yet again. Stalled just a few dozen kilometers outside the Gaza Strip sit more than 180,000 doses of essential childhood routine vaccines, enough to fully vaccinate and protect 60,000 children under 2 years of age, as well as 20 life-saving ventilators for neonatal intensive care units. While UNICEF managed to deliver 30 CPAP respiratory machines, which significantly aid newborns experiencing acute respiratory distress syndrome and prematurity, the ventilators are essential for infants needing advanced respiratory support. Tragically, approximately 4,000 newborns are currently unable to access essential life-saving care due to the major impact on medical facilities in the Gaza Strip. Every day without these ventilators, lives are lost, especially among vulnerable premature newborns in the northern Gaza Strip. What's more, Israel has continued bombing targets in Gaza throughout the ostensible ceasefire. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, 150 Palestinians have been killed by the IDF since the ceasefire came into effect in January, including 4 in the last 2 weeks. This quote from a recent Guardian article is a good example of how surreal much of the reporting on this has been. It says, currently, both sides have refrained from returning to war, though Israel has conducted an intensifying series of airstrikes in Gaza that have killed dozens of Palestinians. Just doesn't really mean anything, does it? Both sides are not at war, but one side is bombing the other side to smithereens. As we've also seen in Lebanon, the Israeli definition of a ceasefire often seems to be that their opponents cease and they fire. While they inevitably claim that targets are all militants, this is regularly contradicted by eyewitness accounts and biographical details of victims. For example, multiple witnesses told Al Jazeera that 3 men killed today in an Israeli drone strike in central Gaza had been collecting firewood, while Israel alleges there were fighters planting roadside bombs. I saw Caroline Levitt, the White House press secretary, saying, "We've never been closer to peace than we are now." And yet, at the same time, you have Israel bombarding Gaza despite a ceasefire, also blockading it, triggering a further blockade of ships by the Houthis, who have now attacked a US ship, with Donald Trump now threatening Iran with retaliations for that attack from Yemen. Does it feel to you like we're closer to peace than we ever have been?
Was just yet another Fell For It Again award to be awarded to all of the MAGA supporters who kept telling us that Trump was a dove. He was the peace president. He doesn't start wars. And yet, of course, and also they told us he was going to be America first, right? It was going to be the American interests of the American people that would come first. Yet it clearly, just as it's shown in terms of who he looks to clamp down with essentially state-sponsored SS blackbagging people off the street, that's good critics of Israel that he's going after. And when it comes to his foreign policy, he is literally using American military might in support of Israel. It seems like it's not America first anymore. It's clearly Israel first when it comes to Trump's internal and foreign policies as well. And again, this is American military might being used to defend Israel against people who say that they are engaging in attacks on people, to essentially try and force Israel's hand to stop its illegal blockade of aid into the Gaza Strip, which is a violation of the provisional measures set out by the ICJ over the claims in the court with regards to Israel inflicting genocide on the Palestinians. And what's going to happen if this continues? We will continue to see what has happened every single time the United States and Western allies have tried to be belligerent and trying to engage in interventionism in the Middle East. It will just create more power vacuums. It will create more displacement, and it will create more war and more refugees, right? He is not, of course, not a peace president. He never has been a peace president. This was the same guy who assassinated Qasem Soleimani in his first term, and he is continuing his belligerent actions against what he perceives to be Iranian threats continually. And again, this is served in support of their colonial outpost in the Middle East, Israel itself, as well. We will continue to see destabilization and blowback if this continues, and I am, of course, sure that it will, because Trump has been very clear that he backs Israel to the hilt in continuing engaging its military actions in the Gaza Strip. And, of course, what people seem to, outside of us here in Novara Media, keep continually forgetting about, which is the continual incursions of the IDF into the West Bank, which Netanyahu has been open and clear that he wants to annex as much of as possible with Trump's blessing. You know, didn't Netanyahu say that Trump was a gift to Israel himself in the Knesset? This is the future of Israel's approach to what's happening in Gaza and in the West Bank, with absolute impunity, because there is no one who can hold him accountable when the power of the United States is behind him.